I want to bring in one of the former president's most outspoken critics himself, the New Hampshire governor, Chris Sununu. So, Governor Sununu, thank you for being here. What was your reaction when you looked at, I don't know if you've read all 98 pages, this indictment coming out of Georgia's Fulton County?
Well, I'll disagree with you on one thing. I don't think it was stunning. I think we all knew it was coming. Even the former president said, you know, a fourth indictment would only help him. And so from a political standpoint, I don't think many folks on the Republican side are shocked by this. I don't think it moves his numbers anymore. I think he's kind of has a lot of that built-in sympathy vote there. But to his point, it helps him because this is all the media is talking about. As long as you guys are, you know, not you, just CNN, but, you know, media, and understandably so, from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. every night saying his name 100 times and not really giving any airtime to these other candidates, that's exactly what the former president wants, because he doesn't want to have to talk about issues. He doesn't want to have to talk about going forward and healing America and all these things that the rest of America wants to see. He wants to relitigate the past, and you know, we're kind of letting him do that, which is unfortunate. I think that dynamic changes as we hit the debates.
I hear what you're saying, but I think the question was actually more about the conduct alleged in the indictment. I mean, if you look at the sheer number of people charged in the Georgia case, you're talking about 18 Trump allies, including Trump himself, and they're accused of racketeering at least one related crime. I mean, there's a lot of conduct alleged here, including trying to tamper with voting machines and actual voting information. What is your take on the actual information contained in this document?
So a couple of things. I'm not a lawyer, but I will say this is incredibly similar to the federal indictment, right, that Jack Smith is doing out of DOJ. Other than, as you brought up, there's now 18 people involved, right? That's a much bigger swath of individuals. And something that I think Republicans need to take note of, this is a grand jury in a very conservative state that said this guy needs to be indicted, right? This isn't just the Department of Justice and the idea that it's all politicized. This is the grand jury in Georgia of all states, which, again, kind of doubles down on the idea that this guy can't win in November. We might give him the nomination. I hope we don't. But this guy cannot win a state like Georgia. He cannot win a state like Arizona or New Hampshire or these swing states that you absolutely have to have. And last time I checked, you can't govern if you don't win, right? It's just going to be another sob story for Donald Trump, and he's going to crush the Republican ticket going down. So I'm still very, very hopeful that the Republicans as a whole make a smart choice and find that one or two candidates to go against him by the time Iowa and New Hampshire hit.
If Trump is the nominee, what should Republican voters do, in your opinion? I mean, 4 indictments in, he'll probably be in at least one of those trials. What should they do? What will you do if he's the nominee?
Well, look, that reality wouldn't come to bear, if it did, and I don't think it will, wouldn't come to bear for about a year from now, right? So the whole political dynamic is going to change. Is Joe Biden even on the ticket by then? What have the Democrats done by then? What's the alternatives by then? Is there a third party? I mean, there's going to be all these other what ifs. And then each voter is going to have to decide. That's actually the beauty of our system. We might completely disagree with voters, even sometimes in our own party, but it's their choice to make, and it's America's choice to make.
One of the candidates in the race, Ron DeSantis, is saying that this indictment is helping Trump. And he may be right. If you look at some of the polling, a poll in March found that Trump and DeSantis were, you know, just about 4 points away. And then more recently, a New York Times Siena poll found that Trump had a massive lead over DeSantis. It's only grown, but I wonder, do you think that that's true, that the indictments are the reason that he's winning, or is it the failure of candidates like DeSantis and others is it the failure of other candidates to launch a strong campaign against him?
Well, look, I think there's too many candidates in the race. I think most people would agree. I think it's a diluted message, and I think a lot of them have a hard time. Not just they spend time defining themselves on policy. I think they're missing the boat there. They need to show leadership, inspiration, something people can galvanize and get excited about, right? They have our interest. Now they got to get us excited as the Republicans in the party. But there's no doubt that these four indictments have definitely built a lot of sympathy for the former president. He knows how to use the media to his advantage incredibly, incredibly well. I'll give him all the credit in the world on that. He knows how to take something bad, make it good, build sympathy and empathy onto himself. He plays this victim role. I mean, the guy is literally a victim, right, at this point, which is just crazy if you know his background and understand who he really is. But he's been able to play that very well. And the national, I mean, it's not so much in New Hampshire and Iowa because the polls locally here are very different than what you see nationally. But nationally, the average Republican is just seeing what they see on the news, and they're not seeing any of the other candidates. No one's giving the other candidates airtime. No one's giving the other candidates. And maybe to your point,
I would disagree with you on that.
Right? I mean, they have to create their own news.
The other candidates are getting plenty of airtime. It's the question is, what are they doing with that airtime?
No.
Next Monday, Trump
they don't get any airtime.
Many of them have been on this.
Many of them
have been on this very show.
Every station tonight. Every station is tonight, and the next night, and the next night will say Trump's name 100 times.
Look,
and maybe
Governor,
you'll have one candidate on here and one candidate on there, but he's getting 98% of the attention.
Let me ask you this. Look, next week, Trump says that he's going to hold a press conference about the Georgia indictment. He says he's going to prove that there was voter fraud. What should the response of the other candidates in this race be to that? It is 2023. Trump is going to hold a press conference next Monday about the 2020 presidential election.
So I honestly don't believe from a purely political standpoint that their response is going to move their numbers one way or the other. I just don't. These candidates have to make their own news. They have to show something about who they are in terms of leadership. And if it's only based on Donald Trump, then again, they're giving Trump all the airtime. They're only creating themselves based on his image and his likeness and how they compare to that. So Trump loves that. You're playing right into his hand if you think every candidate should only be out there taking a side on Trump or not. They got to be themselves. They have to show
it's not about
leadership
taking a
side.
Him, not with I don't think it's about taking a side on Trump. It's a question of taking a side on whether what he's saying is true or false. But before you go, Governor, just a final question. I mean, we were getting at this earlier. 4 indictments in, if Trump is the nominee, will you vote for him?
Well, again, I don't think he's going to be the nominee, and that's a question from a year from now when 100 other variables will come to play. And I would say whether I vote for him or another person votes for him, I'm not a candidate. So that doesn't really matter, if I may. What matters is what happens between now and then, how we narrow the field down amongst Republicans, how we give the majority of Republicans in this country a real clear choice as opposed to 11 candidates and Trump, right? So that's all that really matters between now and then, and how these candidates, to your point, stand on their own, create their own news, and create their own inspiring moments that people say, you know what, there's the one. There's the one individual we can narrow this down to. Trump can take his 40% of the vote and go home. We'll take 60% with this other candidate and actually have something for the future of America.
You are not a candidate, you're right, but you are a citizen like so many others watching this program. And I think it is interesting that you won't say that you will rule out voting for Trump, even though you are making
because I don't know.
such an argument against him.
I don't know. Are you going to vote for Joe Biden? Are you going to vote for Joe Biden if he's indicted on bribery? So much could change between now and the next year. I mean, who knows, right?
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Governor Sununu, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it.
There you go.